Mr. S. Raghunandan, Chairman, India Shopping Centre Forum 2015, and Chief Executive Officer, Virtuous Retail.
Good afternoon. It's great to be part of this event. I think sometime in March, Amitabh and I met and we decided how we'd like to structure the event and what to do. And we said, let's make this a more topical, relevant session and conference rather than the usual done-to-death kind of topics. So this year, I think a lot of the discussions and the panels will focus on reinventing shopping centers for today's consumer. So I'm going to have a very brief sort of look at how retail has evolved, how shopping centers have evolved over the last couple of decades. And then, of course, we lead into a panel discussion. So if you look at, first of all, starting with retail, whatever people understand modern retail, but it really started 2 decades ago. I was lucky enough to be part of that experiment, and I'll talk about it briefly as we go along. I think this tremendous evolution from mid-90s. I remember Nagesh started Shoppers, I think in 93 or 94. I was part of RPG, we started in 95. So we all started retail at the same time. But from then until now, the core has been, or should be, always focus on the customer. And that's what I'm going to really talk about. So if you indulge me, I'll just go back to 20 years ago to retail roots when I was lucky enough to be part of what we thought was a wild ride. But really, we launched a chain of stores. And 3 months after we launched, we did research. And the first thing customers told us was we need to dress up to visit the store. And what store was it? It was a small supermarket called Food World, which was 2,400 square feet. Really the beginnings of, at least in the food and grocery business, and in terms of a chain, the first attempt. So this is almost 20 years ago. And I'll sort of read out a couple of blogs which some of my colleagues who were with me wrote, just to tell you what retail was like then. And and then we'll move on to what it's like today. So, 13 years after we launched, one of us started a blog. And Raghu, who's sadly not with us anymore, he wrote a blog, and I'll sort of read it out to you. May 9th, 1996, that's when we all joined in 95, and we opened the first store in May 1996. And he said, listen, ultimately history will be the judge, but I genuinely believe this date marked the formal launch of organized retailing in India. The date and details are etched in my memory as if it happened yesterday. The mad rush, the mad dash to home at 3:30. Those days we used to do everything. We used to clean the floor, we used to put up the fixtures, because this is the first store. We had no idea. We had no contractors, no one to do stuff. Change for a puja. The anxious wait for the crowd. M.S. Subbalakshmi, renowned Carnatic musician, she inaugurated our first store. I can tell you one, the sales that day, 3 lakhs, which was a huge figure in 96. The press frenzy, the mad crowds, the furious cops watching the worst traffic jam. Alvarpet is a place in Chennai where we opened the first store. All these make memories. But, this other statement is great. He said, I've been involved with over 1,200 store openings since that day. But the magic of 9th May 1996 will be the freshest, most enduring and precious in my mind. So let me read out another blog, which is from Ganesh, who was our HR head. And I get nostalgic hiring you guys at 30% less than what you were earning. We all work for passion, not for money. None of us were paid anything. And the other things, we may not be the biggest, and in those cases, that doesn't seem relevant, but we created a legacy. A great bunch of retail professionals who knew what they were doing and were deeply passionate. In fact, the first day when we opened the store, we opened at 9, I think, and by 11 o'clock, we ran out of rice and sugar. So what do? Ganesh and I jumped into a car, went to the godown, picked up the stuff ourselves, brought it back. That's how we used to operate stores. So, I mean, it's difficult to believe this was the first proper supermarket in the country. So, just a bit of nostalgia, but that's MS Subbulakshmi at the inauguration, that's Raghu Pillai, that's me, and a whole lot of others 19 years ago. So we were all young then. Yeah. Okay, the shopping center journey, if I sort of transition, fast track 20 years. I think all I can say for myself is I've been fortunate enough to have been in the right place at the right time. I think the advantage people like me and some of the others who've got into the business is that we're able to relate our retail experience to the shopping center business. And I think that's a big plus when I look at many people in the business today. The core of both these businesses, whether it's retail or retail real estate, remains the same, which is, can you provide the best possible experience to your customers? How have malls evolved in this period? I mean, if you look at it, retail real estate, in a true sense, is just over a decade old in India. From the early 2000 till the late 2000, there was a rush of people wanting to get in. Very few success stories, really genuine success stories. And today, the situation is worse. I think lack of understanding how truly retail works. And if you don't understand how retail works, how do you make a shopping center work? And FSI maximization rather than customer satisfaction maximization, I think threw up and still do throw up a whole lot of issues. I want to move on to what I call the blindfold test. One is, there are no public spaces in this country. So de facto, malls are the community centers, are the public spaces in this country, which is a great thing. But the problem is there's a standard mix which everybody is adopting. There's one department store, one supermarket, hypermarket, one multiplex, two mini anchors, vanillas, whatever they mean, vanillas, one FEC. This is a standard mix. And a little bit of F&B thrown in. No differentiation, nothing unique from one mall to another mall. So, try the blindfold test with customers. Take somebody, blindfold them, take them to a center without telling them where you are, remove the blindfold. I don't think 9 out of 10 will be able to tell you which mall they're in. So that's really not a very good thing. So, between 2 decades ago and now, how have the customers evolved? I think customers are certainly very aspirational today. They're very demanding. As always in India, value conscious. But above all, I think they're looking for a great shopping experience every time they come to visit one of our centers. So from 96, if I were to ask a customer today, they'd say, bring the store home to dress me up rather than I need to dress up to go to your store. That's how much customers have moved over the last 20 years. So, is the smartphone the new mall? Is this the de facto shopping center today? Customers are time pressed, on the move, they want to buy when they like, where they like. They're unwilling to accept that when they come into a store, an item which they want is not available. The demand is increasing, and they don't care whether it's locally sourced, it's an international brand, source it from overseas. Above all, I think they want convenience. Then, how do shopping centers become relevant in this age of the smartphone or the laptop or whatever you buy stuff on? I think malls and shopping centers will remain relevant as long as the retailers who are tenants of that center mean something to customers. What does that something mean? I think I've said this before and I'll keep saying it, customers are looking for great experience. They are seeking assistance, whether it's in fashion tips, style guidance, or what cuisine do I order, what do I do. They will not particularly care whether they buy from brick and mortar stores or online sites, but they want great service, they want response, they want quality, and convenience. So when they like, where they like, how they like. So what next? I think the old done and dusted formulae, the standard formulae of either retail or a mall is not going to work. I think retail seems to be frozen in the crosshairs. Every retailer I talk to, I'd say maybe 8 out of 10, is talking to me about online and how those guys are discounting, rather than worrying about what they need to do to improve retail efficiencies and productivity. So I think we will quickly move from morphing of digital and physical experiences far quicker than I think any of us can anticipate today. More and more experience centers will become a reality, where you come into an experience center in a mall, you experience a product, you may order online there and then it's delivered home. Those kind of centers, I think, are going to now start appearing in malls. I think words like custom analytics, research, mapping trends, I think this needs to become part of our lives. It slowly is, but not in as accelerated a manner as it should be. So, in conclusion, I'm saying the train is leaving the station. Hop onto it now or forever. Get left behind. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand to Mr. Raghunandan for that wonderful and insightful presentation that sets the tone for some very, very exciting times ahead. Sir, could you stay back on stage? I shall invite the panel to join you. Ladies and gentlemen, India Shopping Center Forum 2015 is high voltage, high energy. And that energy begins from you. So let's see you put some energy together as we invite each of our panelists on stage. Please welcome the Executive Director, Pacific Malls, Abhishek Bansal. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, give them a huge round of applause. A warm welcome to the Chairman and Managing Director, World Trade Park, Anup Bhartaria. Please welcome Managing Director, Cinepolis, Javier Sotomayor. A warm welcome to the Managing Director, Prozone, and Managing Director, Provogue, Nikhil Chaturvedi. Please put your hands together for the President, Grovel's 101, Pallavi More. Our international observer is former head, Capital Land, and founder and CEO, Synergistic Real Estate. Let's welcome Kelvin Ng. Please welcome former Chief Executive Officer, Lippo Malls, Indonesia, and presently Senior Advisor, the Journey Partnership USA, Thomas C. Malayal. And ladies and gentlemen, let's have a round of applause for our moderator, Chairman and Managing Director, JLL, Mr. Anuj Puri. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're set for some exciting times ahead. It's over to you, Mr. Anuj Puri, to take us through the session with your panel.
Thank you, and very good afternoon. I'm actually going to look forward to this session. We've got about an hour and a half, very eclectic panel, starting from Raghu onwards, a pretty large panel. And the good thing is that we've got an hour and a half, and which also means that I'm going to open it up to the floor for you asking questions. Some of the delicate questions I may be able to ask. Some of them I may not be able to ask. So it'll be interesting for the floor to be able to ask this eclectic panel who's sitting in here. I do note that we really don't have a retailer other than Nikhil if he wants to wear his retail hat. So it depends where the question comes in from, whether he's going to wear his retail hat or the mall developer's hat. I do recall about 10 years ago, we were sitting in here, and at that time, there was almost a mall a week that was opening. One mall a week. This was about 2006-07, and the first half of 2008. And 2014, we had one mall in the full year. And I see a lot of people sitting in here whom I'm very familiar with, who have a lot of pain of the malls that they have opened and are trying to fill up those malls. And so it is very clear that from a mall a week a decade ago, we had a mall a year opening up in 2014. So quite an interesting time and a challenging time. And I want to use this 1.5 hours very diligently on asking some pointed questions. And none of the panelists are prepared or rehearsed. So what you're going to experience, the responses are going to be pretty raw that are going to come in from the panelists. So, yeah, Nikhil, I'll start with you only. Are you going to make more malls? Having done one mall and in the process of doing the second mall, are you going to do more malls?
I think the market's changed on its head, and till the interest rates don't reduce, it doesn't make sense to build malls. The returns on an asset today have reduced to about 14%, and your interest rate is at 13.5 or 14. So with that sort of environment, I'm not saying the business is over, but the financial viability has become zero. So it is more attractive to buy a ready asset today.
And when you say ready asset today means a ready mall that you're going to buy?
Yes.
And it's cheaper to buy a ready mall today than to build new?
See, there's a cost to development risk. So if my development risk cost is 3%, so if I can get it at 11% yield, 3% is not worth the development risk. The development risk has to be worth 10%.
So Nikhil, what is going to happen if you were to wear a retail hat? Because you're quite clear that it's just not making any economic or financial sense to do a mall. So what will happen to Indian retail if there are no new malls, no new spaces being offered to retailers?
From a retailer's perspective, see, if you see the growth opportunity for Indian organized retail and everything, and if you see Knight Frank's report, your reports and everything, we are talking about retail, physical retail, market share falling from 24% to 18%, even though the absolute market increases. And e-tailing going from 2 and 3% to 25%. So obviously from our perspective, how we see it as a retailer is that from, it doesn't matter who sells our product. We are happy to, make it reach the customer the way he wants it to reach. And the cost of sending it through e-tail for established brands is much better. I don't have any physical cost. And if the consumer, in the minds of the consumer, if your brand is established, it's a big plus.
Kelvin, if I can come to you on this point, just on the e-commerce. You come, and the company that you represent has a number of malls in mature markets. E-commerce has been very mature in those markets. What has been the onslaught of e-commerce on physical retail space?
I think if you look at the e-commerce in developed markets, probably the most developed is in the US, right? There are certain segments that e-commerce has penetrated, particularly in some of the category killers like electronics, electrical, right? And you find that many of them are facing challenges because there isn't a real value proposition, just buying online or offline. And some other things like books is clear example, music is all taken up by the e-commerce space. However, I quote one parallel example. However, in China, the 60% to 70% of the e-commerce space taken by fashion and shoes and leather goods, right? 60 to 70, very clear because they are factory of the world. They are all built there. But however, back to the US, all right, discount fashion, right, it's not so prevalent like China. A retailer who has 3,000 stores in the US, right, he's not going to be concerned about whether his market will be captured by somebody else because I'm really buying at bulk, right? So I can create an e-commerce online, and I should be doing both. So I think end of the day is whether it's retail or e-commerce, you must understand your business model. Who am I targeting and how am I going to make that margin? If you cannot make that margin, you have to clear yourself out of the e-commerce space. That's why earlier on, in morning, I shared out about there's 10,000 e-commerce online retailers that died every day in China. And only 10% make money. 10% make money. 10% struggle, and then the 80% they don't make money. So I think it's not e-commerce. There's relevance in terms of convenience. Walmart has gone into e-commerce in China, right? And it's fine because you can order your household consumables, toilet paper, your household goods, and they sell at everyday low prices. So it's sent to your house at the time you want. At the time you want, because logistic is cheap, right? Logistic is cheap, delivery is cheap. So I think the market is evolving, and I think I look at it this way that because of this onslaught, so-called perceived onslaught, right? Retailers are waking up. Real estate developers are reviewing their business model. Right? Some of them are doing retail warehouse, another market space because of e-commerce, right? And some of them are looking at improving experience, how to rebrand my mall. What is my mall brand culture? When somebody visits, there's an identity to relate to my mall. What is that? So I think it's a good scenario.
So let me ask you a direct question. Is Capital Mall worried in China, leave India out, in China, you have the big boys in China, of e-commerce?
No, they are still building malls in second, first, third tier city, except that they are very clear that tier 1 city, I will do a Raffles City brand. Tier 2 city, I will do a community mall. They were never in the high-end space, right?
In tier 2 city?
Not even in the tier 1 city. They were always in the middle upper, not the high-end brand. So in a way, that saves them from the current, downfall of the luxury goods in China because of the corruption practices, So I think they are continuing to do that. But being a market leader, they are also actively looking at apps application. They're looking at wireless. They're looking at how to make all my directories friendly. They are actually same with Simon Property. He has acquired technology companies. They are embracing technology in a big way. And I think if you follow the model of the developed countries like US and Singapore, they are actually just embracing technology so that they stay relevant.
So Kelvin, I'm going to come back to you on 2 or 3 points. One is really, how come malls in China continue to be successful? And so what is it that we're not doing right in India? And I'm going to come back. And the second is quite a hot topic, which is REITs. And you've been again very successful. So I think the audience would really want to know, how does that function? But let me move to Anup. First to you. You have a fantastic mall, one of the best malls in the country. It's unfortunate that many of the people in this room may not have gone to Jaipur and seen that mall, but it is a fantastic mall, huge coverage, and the frontage that you've been able to build. Do you wish that you had wheels and you could bring that to Bombay?
I have a dream that Jaipur should become Bombay.
Because I'm not so sure, Anup, that tier 3 story in India has really panned out the way that we all had envisaged. Yeah. So I just want to honestly know, is tier 3 story of India on retail been a success?
Yeah, it has been a grand success, and apart from just being in a city where people were very apprehensive about that, how a city like Jaipur would be able to address to such a large mall or such a big development, which even Mumbai and Delhi were, really struggling for it. But with this globalization and things happening pan-India, the mentality of everybody is same. Everybody is looking for similar things. Everybody is ready for similar things at the same time. So I didn't find any challenge to educate people to adopt that model.
And so you're saying is that tier 3 has been successful
Yeah, actually, it's a plain mindset that you have a tier 1 mindset, you have a tier 2 mindset. There's nothing like that, actually. Most of the people who are working in tier 1 cities are hailing from tier 2 cities. So that, now the knowledge is transferred to such grassroots levels that the thinking of a person in a tier 2 and a tier 1 is not different. You may vary in quantums. So you may have 5 malls in a tier 1 city, but you may have 2 malls in a tier 2 city. It's something like that. But the thought process of every individual is similar around the country.
Yeah. I'm just sort of driving home a point because I know there are many people sitting in the audience from tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. So my experience has been that tier 2, tier 3 cities hasn't been as successful on retail, not because the malls weren't developed nicely. It's just that the retailers haven't profited in those cities as much as what they had envisaged.
Yeah, because when you compare on the similar rules, what you adopt in tier 1 cities and you want to adopt the same rules in tier 2 cities, then the comparisons would be that the profitability might vary. Tier 2 city will take a certain time to really grow because they're exposed to the brands. So, they understand the brands and then take maybe the gestation period in a tier 1 city is 6 months and in a tier 2 city might be 1.5 years. So that gap will be there. But once that gap is covered up, then the market is stable and it will be able to sustain itself.
So you need to have more patience.
More patience.
For a tier 2, tier 3 city.
Exactly.
Raghu, we heard Nikhil in his opening remarks, he mentioned that given a choice, he's not going to develop malls because today the way interest costs are, it's just not viable to build a mall compared to what the borrowing rates are. On the other hand, as Virtuous Retail, as a private equity fund, you continue to go out and invest more money. So what's the rationale for you to be so varied in thoughts from where Nikhil is coming in?
I think we are building malls. We want to build more malls. The challenge, I think, is to build malls at a cost that's affordable. That's spinning a bit out of control. So that's one part of it. But this whole argument is a bit illusory because the biggest worry I have is twofold. One, which you alluded to earlier, there are not enough malls being built, so how will retail expand? Secondly, even when you build a mall, my thing is, unless we work harder and the retailers work harder, the productivity will not go up. Then cost and rentals is a secondary issue. When your productivity is low, then rentals is a big issue, profitability is an issue, then you have all kinds of other things coming up. If the trading density of a center overall is really good, above 1,200 or 1,500 rupees a square foot, if your center is trading, no one complains. Nobody talks about rent, no one talks about CAM, no one talks about footfalls. The moment you drop to 700, the whole world descends on you. So I think the challenge is, can you build malls intelligently? So for example, Virtuous, one of the things we are seeing as an opportunity in the market is we're positioning and building community centers. We believe that's a differentiator for us. Can there be something more to than just shopping? So I hope that will pay off because that's what we are laying bets on.
And it's quite a dichotomy. On one hand, Raghu, we continue to say that the retailers need to be more efficient, more productive. And on the other hand, the retailers, and it's unfortunate we don't have any retailer, but when they come on the panel, they say the mall is wrong, the location is wrong, the city is wrong, whatever I am doing is right. But it's the mall developer, who's really wrong. How do we ever have that semblance, come through? There has to be some equilibrium.
Yeah, I'll answer and then I'll pass it on to him. I alluded to that even earlier. I think this traditional mix is gone. This mix makes no sense to anyone anymore. If you follow the standard formula. I mentioned this earlier. I think people are looking for experiential retail. I think you'll see a lot more entertainment, F&B, and those options coming into a center, along with retail. Okay, even retail, there are some retailers who are doing superbly, but I think they are focused on the brand and they're building, I think, great brands and the traction that's being built. Where I'm seeing an issue is if there's no differentiator, if you have, say, a large store which is an aggregation of brands, then you will get disintermediated very fast and people will not shop.
I'll share a few experiences of mine. I'm operating malls in Tier 1, Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. So I'm operating a mall in Delhi, which is Tier 1, and Tier 2, which is Ghaziabad, and Tier 3, which is Dehradun. The first mall was in Ghaziabad, so the experiences were very different. In Delhi, when we opened, we were the rock stars from day one, so there was no doubt. In the first day, the first month, our footfall was crossing 7-8 lakh people a month. So Delhi, it was easier. But does that mean that everything translated to sale in the first month? No, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It took us 6 months to hit the numbers that we wanted to hit. Similarly, when we opened in Dehradun, we hit the footfall like, Dehradun is a city of 1 million people, and we get a footfall about 3.5 to 4 lakh people, which is, for a city of that size, 3.5, 4 lakh footfall per month is, I think, is a good number. But it took us 1 year to reach the kind of wallet share that we intended from the city. So it just took us a bit more time, but once we were settled, and the center is performing very, very well. So the second thing we focused on was the right size of the center. And for all three places, the center size was, I would say, it was just perfect. For example, Delhi, we have 500,000 square feet, and for a city like Dehradun, we have a 200,000, 250,000 square feet center. So the size was just apt. The size was just apt. The biggest thing we struggled with for Tier 3 was that we didn't have enough retailers at that point of time, 3 years ago, who were ready to move into smaller cities. So I filled up the big boxes, but the smaller line shops were a bit of a challenge. But now when the center is 100% occupied, the city loves it, and as Raghu puts it, it is the community center of the city. There is no place to go. I mean, you could go to a park, because Dehradun is a very green city, but there is just absolutely no place to go on a Sunday for people in the city. So that just works very well for us.
Abhishek, two sort of sub-questions to that. One, are you making money after you pay interest?
Absolutely.
And second, if you were to be given a choice to do residential on the same place, would you have made more money?
I don't think so, no. No. Although my malls are not very old, Dehradun malls opened only 1.5 years old. 1.5 years back, the Delhi mall is only 4 years, not even 4 years old now. But I will not say that I would have made more money on the residential. And the value of the asset that I've created, I don't think at that location now anybody else can create that kind of value. So.
Well, I must admit we should give you a standing ovation, because you are the only guy who wouldn't have...
To answer to the question of you, the one that you put in the beginning, that are builders looking at doing more shopping centers. Now there are two sides to it. One, if people do not want to do more shopping centers, it just works very, very well for us who have shopping centers, because our valuations just goes through the roof, and we get like damn cool rentals. So that's one. And second, builders and developers in India have, I mean, that's my view really, haven't been, उनको मेहनत करने की बहुत ज़्यादा आदत नहीं, और shopping center अगर बनाना है, it's a very, very, मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी. You have to work hard for a shopping center, because you have to be a developer and a retailer. So, selling a residential is fine. You keep 5 executives and you're selling your resi. But shopping center mein, you have to wear a hat of a retailer and a developer from the day you buy the land. Without that, we've seen those shopping centers. And to be honest, we've had shopping centers which have failed. I mean, we had a shopping center in Agra, it didn't work, we shut it down. So we learned from our mistakes. So you have to wear that retailer hat from day one when you buy the land.
So you've had a bit of a failure.
Yes, absolutely. And we learned from it. We learned from it.
And then what have you done with that, the Agra?
I mean, it's shut. I mean, we can't do much about it. But I am pretty sure in the next 1 year or so, we will revive it. It is going to be revived.
Pallavi, coming to you, I know that you have a fantastic mall in Bombay, and through some period it went into a bit of a challenge, because it was a mall which was a Me Too mall, and then you worked very hard on food, and then bringing in the community back into that mall. I think it'll be worth for the audience and for this panel to really understand what differentiation you started to create in particularly the food and then bringing in the community into the mall.
Thanks, Anuj. We wanted our mall Raghu looks different. If you put a person blindfold and get it to our mall, it does look different from the glass and brick. We did want to create an experience. But food did help us when we thought that something a person does go out of the house at least once a week too is for food. And we wanted to make food a strong point for people to come in and try the different kinds of food and the availability of food across. And earlier when I was learning about a mall, everyone told me don't have many restaurants because the restaurants are closed half the day. So when you come in and you would see lights closed, and it's not nice to have too many restaurants or food in your area. But when we realized the more food we had people coming at all odd hours, a different group of people for a different kind of restaurant. A pure veg would have a different crowd. Pop-tates would have a different crowd and coming at happy hours. So we would have a lot of people at 3 to 6 who were young people who wanted to eat experimental food. And then to get the ladies, more of the ladies come in, and because we evolved in stages to know everything is happening, we started a community program recognizing the ladies and the kids, and we continued it for 3 years, where the ladies come and showcase their proficiency, whether as an artist, as a cook. There's no competition. Everyone wins. They get to walk the ramp. They get to perform. They get to sell their food and sell their wares at whatever price they want. They have to be from the area. And the first year we had maybe 60 registrants in the first day. The next year we had 150 in 2 hours. So we had a lot of ladies, their friends, and because they were performing, we had every member of the family, whether it was a son-in-law, whether it was a brother-in-law, the grandchildren, everyone. When we had artists come in and perform, maybe, you know, when reality show artists come and perform, the crowd wasn't as much as when we had the people from the community come and perform. Everyone wanted to see them, and then they've identified, ye hamara mall hai. So that really helped us. And taking from them, we've started doing things for Parkinson's. The senior people come in, they have a place to meet. And so whichever organization comes to us that we have a need in this area, whether it's for Alzheimer's, whether it is for leukemia, we tend to give them a place and give them people an area to come for all age groups. And that's really helped us get people come in again and again. Thank you.
Javed, you are an occupier, so delighted to ask you this question. When, as Cinepolis, you look at taking up space in a mall, what are the top 3 or 4 criteria that you would consider? And this is specific to India. I know you're very big in Mexico and some of the other Latin American countries, and malls may be different. But when you're looking at India, what are the top 3 or 4 parameters?
Well, the first 3 criteria is location, 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 obviously. So yes, we do look at the location as #1 criteria. But it's also very important for us, the shopping center itself. The size of the shopping center, we believe that the bigger, the better. We also believe that community centers work better. And it's not, there is not a fixed formula for that. Meaning, a big size of shopping center in a tier 2 city is different than from a tier 1 city. The developer is also important. We believe that we want to engage with a developer who's committed for the future of that shopping center. building a mall is not enough. When you open the doors of the shopping center is when the challenge begins. And we will be working together for 20 years. So we better off try to align visions, understanding since the very beginning. We have to acknowledge that there is a symbiotic relationship between the tenants and the developers. We cannot exist without the other. And that is a fact. It's not developers versus the retailer. Obviously, the retailer pushes for lower rentals, developer pushes for higher rentals. But at the end, what I believe the formula should be is developers and tenants have to work for the customer in order to bring more people in order to translate those footfalls into revenues. And whenever we have enough revenues, we feel supported by the developer, united by the developer. If we believe that the developer is working hard with passion, doing promotions, putting all the tenants together for a united promotion in one specific season, that's very important. So coming back to the criteria, location would be number one. Size of the mall or design of the mall, it's also very important. And the developer himself, it's the third factor that we
location,
would be putting.
Design and size, and the partner.
Right.
Thomas, you've heard everybody's comments, and you've been coming to India for a long time. And the good thing is that you've been the former CEO of Lippo Malls, which many of us know have been very large mall owners in Indonesia, which is sort of Asia Pacific, this part of the world. And today you lead a very well-known architectural firm. What do you think has gone wrong in India? So we've heard comments which have been mixed response. But all of us know that something has gone wrong. Something has also gone right, but something has gone wrong. What do you think has gone wrong in India?
That's a tough question with this audience. Correct, we met about a decade ago at the first International Council of Shopping Centers. And I think back how much has changed in the last decade. And I have to admit, I would have expected more progress. I think one of the challenges that I see, what Javier mentioned, is this commitment to quality real estate development. I think that one of the issues, for example, raising capital, when you talk about double-digit interest rates, India would have access to significantly more capital if it built institutional quality level real estate. For example, Lippo Malls Indonesia has a REIT listed in Singapore. Similarly to India, there's high interest rates, capital is expensive. But to the extent that you can have the right management and the right quality of the real estate, I think there is capital available. So if you ask me, the one most significant issue is, from my perspective, is that. And most of my career was in the United States, working for Macerich, what is probably one of the largest, most prominent institutional quality level real estate operators. And the possibility is here. The question is whether there's the desire, willingness, and long-term view to make it happen.
So Raghu, I'm going to come to you on those 3 points that Thomas ended, and I'm going to pick up the point desire. I think all the guys in this room have the desire to succeed. But truly, it's not happening only from one side, which is really the retailers being able to take on more space and being able to pay rent on time. Do you think that if FDI was to open up 100% multi-brand, would that change the equation of malls in India?
Two things on it. One is, I'll just come to your question second. On the desire bit, I think there is desire, there is intent. The problem is in execution. Whatever you do or say, doesn't take you less than 5 years from the time you conceptualize till you deliver a product. That is the problem, you know. And then what's the cost of capital and the opportunity cost in 5 years? And then it takes you another 10 years to get money back. So that's a big issue. Okay, this FDI business, I think, is irrelevant today with e-commerce. Okay, and it's been reported also, but it's irrelevant. I personally, if you ask me, I think opening up single brand retail has brought in a lot more benefit. End of the day, I mean, this multi-brand thing is all about Walmart and Tesco and a couple of these chaps. How many department stores are rushing in? Nobody. You know, just 2 or 3 large FN food and grocery guys. So, but if we can get 100 more single brands, I think that will help us tremendously.
And why are they not coming in, the single brands?
No, they are coming in. I mean, all the big boys are coming in now. It's taking a bit longer, but I mean, I don't see a problem with single brand. More and more people are coming in. Whether they're coming in with 100% or 51% or a franchise partner, it doesn't matter. But they are coming in.
Just one point, though. It is true that I think that retailers are growing here, but India is competing in a global perspective. I was in China last week, and I don't say this, you know, I'm proud. My father emigrated from India 50 years ago. So to the extent that India is going to compete, it has to play ball at a global level, and time is hurting you. It's a race. It's a race. And I just haven't seen the amount of change that is possible in a decade.
Very interesting point, Thomas. And you're saying that you have not seen the change happen in the retailer or on the retail real estate?
Both.
Sorry, you go ahead.
Well, one question that I would have for developers here is, or one question that I would like to put on the table is, if there is a problem that like you're saying, Anuj, where is the problem? Is it from the retailers or the developers side, or is it from the demand side? That's what I want to put on the table, whether the economy hasn't evolved and the Indian consumer is not ready yet to absorb as many goods and articles as we expected 8 or 10 years back. So that's something that I would like to
that's a very good point. Yeah.
From here.
Anup, you've got several businesses and very successful businesses. Would you say that the mall amongst all your businesses is the toughest business?
Every business is tough. There's nothing easy. That's what we were discussing. Most of people are losing weight. Actually, it's not that mall is not a difficult business. Yes, mall is complicated to the extent because there are so many parameters you have to collect together. It's not just a retail space. People have started thinking that, okay, most of the mall developers are doing create a space and things would happen. It's not like that. As somebody really pointed out that a lot of hard work has to go in developing a mall. Hard work to the extent that you have to convince people to be a part of you. You have to give them the opportunity for their business, because when we invite retailers to our malls, it's not that we are just filling up spaces. We want them to earn money. And unless they'll do that, they'll not be able to stay with us. So to make them earn money, we have to market the mall. We have to run the mall in a particular fashion. We have to create an environment and an experience, because malls, as it has been told by Mr. Raghu also often on, that it is an experience, a universal truth. It's not only just an experience, it's actually much more than that. It's more like a stress buster for a family, that they come out and really, you know, they take off themselves from work and other pressures and they can spend time in the mall. So running the mall is more important now than building the mall. And building can be done by an architect, a design, and something innovation can always be made up. But the success of it depends primarily on the fact that how you're able to connect with the customer. And when the customer gets satisfied and you're able to pull in more customers, then the retailers are going to be happy. Because I like to come to one point which I missed earlier, the tier 2, the challenge in tier 2 cities is the retailers apply the same rules of tier 1. For example, I'm a brand of an X fashion brand, and I have a format of this level. Now, if I'm going to push that format of the same thing in the tier 2 level, naturally my results are going to be different. So this has a synergy to be developed between the tier 2 mall developers and the retail brands, that they should have differential formats for tier 2 brands. It's not just related to that I have a brand format in Mumbai, so I can replicate the same in an X city. So there should be certain changes, some innovation works done in-house in the retail brands also. So mall running is not a difficult business. It's a very interesting business. It's the most enjoyable business, I would say, because so many happiness you are able to deliver to people. As they become community centers, we feel satisfied when lakhs and lakhs of people visit our place, and when they come inside the mall, see their faces, they are all happy, smiling, as if you are giving them something. So the sense of giving is there in the mall. And if you're able to achieve that, I think it gives you all the satisfaction.
Well, we all know you're a very successful businessman in other businesses. So.
Other businesses are, it all depends on the economy of the country, how the things are moving. Every business gets affected.
Yeah.
If there is difficulty in malls, it is difficulty in architecture also.
So, Sanup, let me ask you a direct question. Many of the retailers do well. Do they pay on time?
It's for me.
Oh, it's a question for this panel.
Yes,
because,
yes, I would say, they do well, but they need to be told to pay on time. They pay on time.
Their time.
It's their time. That's right. Thomas said it. They pay on their time. Yeah. Whether it is on time or not.
I would say, some pay on time, regardless of however they're doing. It's, I think, in the mentality of the retailer. Some of them pay on time, and on the date it does come in, and some, however well they're doing, you need to be behind them to, so you can't put all of them in one basket.
Which is quite a challenge to someone who's a little bit on the sidelines of that industry. That sitting in here, if I was to calculate the amount of money that has been invested just on this panel on the malls, I can tell you cumulatively it will be more than the market cap of all the Indian retailers put together. And so that is what is happening on one side, where you're putting in so much of money on infrastructure, on occupiers, where the financial health is still gathering momentum. So it is a bit of a interesting proposition, and I wish that there were some retailers here, because you're actually putting in money on the faith of someone whose business is going to flourish. And a lot of that is also dependent on how their financial health is. Well, you need to tell, is it from a retailer's perspective or a mall developer's perspective that come in?
I'm just talking about the cycle. When we started investing in this industry, the market cap of all the retailers looked like it will cross even the telecom industry. And today, if we say India has about 70 million square feet of retail space, and we put an average of 10,000 rupees a square feet, the value of all the malls in India today is less than Flipkart. All the retail space in India. So these are cycles we'll have to, the people who last it out
Good point.
are going to come out winners.
Yeah.
So I don't think, if you don't believe in the bet you took, this is anyways a 15-year business. But I think as an industry, I think the biggest challenges I face is that in India, this is not recognized as an industry. So people don't understand the need of long-term funds. We're not considered infrastructure, we are considered builders. Tell me an industry where the payback is 8 years and you get exactly 8-year loans. Internationally, you will have a bond issue and you will be allowed to not pay back the fund for all your lifetime if you want. The bank makes money on the interest, everyone makes money, everyone's happy. So in India, the laws, in terms of ease of construction, India is 185 out of 189 countries. So if you have to build a mall, it takes you 5 or could be 8 also, 8 years to plan and 8 years to try to repay, which could go to another 12. So who's going to put money into a 20-year industry? So I'm just saying that, the retailers will bounce back big time, is my belief. If you see Europe, you see America, what's happening is people who are online are being forced to create a public front.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Today, the biggest challenge is I went to buy a TV online. It was 15,000 rupees cheaper than Chroma. And not on a 3 lakh rupee TV, on a 70,000 rupee TV. The challenge was, do I trust him? So what I'm trying to say is that they will also, if you see the evolution, even the Europeans are actually now keeping customer fronts. So this will all evolve, it's a cycle. And I'm a very strong believer that retail will bounce back very big time because new investments will reduce. When new investments reduce, the ones who exist become invaluable. It's the same for our malls. New investments are not coming in, so the fellow who's there is very valuable.
Yeah, which is what Abhishek said, that, in a way, it's okay if no new malls come up for a little bit of time because these malls will survive. Abhishek, I want to ask you a question and then I'll move, Kelvin, to you back on to REITs and China. Abhishek, where your malls are, particularly in Delhi, it is sort of the mother of all malls in Delhi. It's got surrounded by all malls and you created that mall and it was successful, as you said, in the first year. Subsequently, many other malls came in, but you have continued to remain a huge success. I think if you can dwell a little bit on what you have done there, it'll be very helpful for this audience to understand that how you have continued to remain on top despite new malls having come in the vicinity.
See, when we opened the center in Delhi, there were about 5, 6 shopping centers already there in the market. Our mall is the worst location of all the 7. But there are a few things that we did which I think worked for us. We selected the best stores out of those 6 and got them to come to our mall. That's one of the things that we did, and made sure that they vacated those. One thing that helped us a lot was that those all the 6 malls that were there already were all strata titles sold. So there was no one person who was looking or taking care of those properties. So barring Shopper Stop, which was one full building, all the other centers were sold individually to investors. So it didn't take too much to kind of divert the traffic from those centers to our center. The other few things which were very, very critical were the size of the development, which was just optimum for the market. So a 500,000 square feet center was just right for the market at that time. Although I wish now I had more FSI, but we don't. That's one. And second, we worked really hard on the design. I mean, I think before we started construction, we must have spent at least 6 to 8 months only on design. From basics like parking, ingress, egress, floor heights, multi-level car park, where the toilets will be, all of those, so smaller things to bigger things. We spent a lot of time on design, so that worked really well for us. And Delhi as a market is fantastic anyways. On the new shopping center bit, our competition was not really shopping centers in that market. Our competition was the high street, really. Because even after we opened, there were not too many new centers which have opened, barring maybe 1 or 2, which are also quite a drive away. They're almost like 10 kilometers away from us. So our competition from the day we opened has always been the high street. The high street what we noticed was that the high street was very, very strong on Indian ethnic wear, primarily because the Rajouri Garden market and Punjabi Bagh was known for it. So we deliberately didn't touch that vertical at all. And we got the modern fashion, modern retail, and the newer brands, and we continue to do that. And that is one of the major reasons that we still get the kind of footfalls that we get.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Abhishek. So Kelvin, I'm going to ask last 2 questions and then open it up for the floor to ask these panelists. So going back to the REITs, whether, and we're aware that MAT has been taken away by the finance ministry in India. So REIT is now going to be a reality in India. So, the capital gain that has been addressed, the issue, MAT has been taken away, and the dividend distribution tax is not going to go away. So, which I think the developers are now going to look at, preparing themselves for REIT. And I think over the weekend, DLF made the announcement that they were going to come out with 2 REITs in India. So the question to you is that given it's now going to be a reality, REITs coming into India, does that give a new lease of life to malls in India? And the experience that you've had as Capital Land in China in terms of consolidation. So is there a thought that, like Anoop's mall, one of the best malls that I have seen in there, would get consolidated into a REIT? Because unlikely that he's going to be able to REIT it ever. And at some stage, you need liquidity to come in. So has the experience in China been more on consolidation of some of these single mall owner and whether that has given a new lease to the life in retail?
Okay, just let me share a bit of the China experience. I think it's some of them are relevant to India. Then I go into REITs. I happened to start the first mall 1995 in China by mistake. My boss bought a bad mall. I struggled. Luckily, it was only a small project. Otherwise, I spent a few years just working to get it correct. The rental forecast was wrong.
You'll have to put it.
So many things. But China has got a few things right and a few things wrong, which we can learn. There are 4,000 malls in China now.
4,000 malls in China?
Yes. I serve as a senior advisor to the China Shopping Center Association, so my numbers are quite accurate. But over 95 to now, right?
So in about 20 years, 4,000 malls.
Yeah, 4,000 malls. So I think India can do the same, right? Because you're a big country. US has more, I'm sure I mentioned numbers. So we don't compare because it's the developed countries, right? China opened up to WTO. That was a very important milestone, the FDI, I think that really makes China different, all right? And I hope this government will think about that, all right? The impact is that it forces you to be more competitive. I opened my office in Shanghai as an operational HQ because I projected then that all the international brands were headquarters in Shanghai and not Hong Kong and Singapore. Because they know that that is the largest market, the government is open. So you want to see Uniqlo, you want to see Apple, you see them in China. You want to see Zara, you see them in China. So that allows them to open up to new brands. When new brands come here, they're more prepared to try. So that may help also India, right? With your mall vacancies and all, they're prepared to try. So that is 2 milestones. Of course, they have got it wrong also. 2 factors they've gone grossly wrong. One was that the government was getting revenue by selling land, right? So that created excessive capacity of oversupply in some countries, in some cities. They also were selling strata title shops, and I choose to tickle them. I say, look, your strata title shop makes you 300% profit. Huh? One time. But, you kill it after that. I used to make a joke out of them because it's really 300% profit, and they do it, cash it out, and then become rich. And after that, what they do is another story, right? So they make some mistakes also, but they have also got better quality design. Right? They have got better quality malls because they open up to Capital Land, they open up to Su Hong Kai, some of the best in the world. They open up to Simon Property. This Ivanhoe Cambridge is there, Tottenham is there, all right? And they continue to grow. Lipo, Ascenders, Capital Land, they are all there. So that competition actually, and I can tell you that the local guys have caught up very fast. Competition is good, right? Competition is good. Local guys caught up very fast. They are doing equally good. And I always warn even the architects and all the developers, that they're going to be there. Because, competition in the openness is I always believe is good because I come from a country which is highly competitive, Singapore. Because when it's, you have very little room for failure because your land cost is 60%, right? You better get it right the first time. You know, I used to work for the Deputy Chief Planner of Singapore, right, when he retired. He told me we have one city, one country. Master planning is only once. No second chance. So I brought up with that kind of mentality, you know. So that is about the things that we should learn by opening up. Coming to REITs, actually in the US, REITs was launched at the time where a country was in the worst shape. Yeah. I'm sure you know, Thomas, right? Second worst. Right? Second worst, all right? One of the worst time. And it is the best time because then it allows institutional investors to come in. It profit the small-time investor, the unit shareholders, because it is not taxable, all right? Everybody get a share of it. Instead of buying things that you're not familiar, now you're buying from professional developers who produce a yield, and then you buy the shares, and then you can exit safely because it's higher than the CPI, the return, all right? It's not volatile as a stock price. It's guaranteed yield, right? So I think China has not gone into REITs yet, but CapitaLand is pretty clever. They have structured their organization such that, you know, when the property is good, they can plow it back to Singapore and put it into the REITs. So I think the REITs will be a very healthy way, and China is aggressively trying to push for the REITs, and I think India should do likewise, because they will provide lots of funding, and the funding will definitely go down. Not your 16 and 14%, it will definitely go down to something more chewable. And I think that will create a healthy growth for one of the biggest consumption economy, which is India. So I think it will come. However, come back to REITs, I think it is very important that REITs is not a way to just exit. We have to prepare for REITs. That means that you have to build quality assets, right? Because when REITs come into play in India, there's lots of people to choose. Why should I take your mall? Back to Thomas about quality malls. You have to build something that lasts. You have to build a storyline, you know, as a developer. Why you put money, institutional investors into my instead of somebody else's property or REITs. You build a story. Where is your focus? Where is your value proposition? Where is your culture? You know, what can you do in the future? Bear in mind, you look at Australia, they started REITs much early. In the difficult times, I remember 10 years back, there were 25 REITs in the retail, and it was consolidated to 16. So even REITs failed. Back in my day.
Thomas, last question to you. If our Prime Minister said is that I want one representative from the mall developers to come and meet me and ask me what are the 3 things that you want from me, and we were to nominate you being the sort of most smartest man sitting in.
There's much smarter people.
What would be the 3 things that you would ask the government of India on behalf of the mall developers?
Well, I think first I would say don't be afraid. Indians can compete. We know that. They compete in the United States. They compete in the UK at the highest levels. So 1, don't be afraid. Open up. Number 2, let foreign retail enter the market. Competition drives innovation, and like I said, I think that people can compete here. First of all, the people in India have a natural advantage, right? This is their country, they know how the land works, they know how the politics work. Open up. And finally, yeah, definitely do REITs. REITs, to me, they allow developers to recycle capital. So there's a room for REITs and there's room for developers. So developers can get that entrepreneurial profit, sell to institutional investors, and recycle that capital that allows more malls to be built. So I guess those would be my 3 things.
Yeah. And sorry, the first point that you said is don't be afraid is to the Prime Minister that he should not be afraid, is it?
Well, I don't think Mr. Modi is afraid of anybody, but use his leadership ability to say that Indians can compete with anybody. And he's the leader, so I think he just has to relay that message countrywide, continually.
Very good. Very nice. Well said. So this, I'm going to open it up for any questions that may come in from the floor. As I said, we've got a very smart panel. We got some Microphones on the floor. Amitabh raised his hand. Please do identify yourself. We all know Amitabh, but if there are other people, identify themselves. And if you've got a question to a particular speaker, please do address it
Anuj,
to the speaker directly.
Anuj, I have a comment and a thought which I heard the whole session.
You'll have to be a little bit louder. We can't hear you.
I heard the whole session and I have a thought which I want to share. I felt there were two financial guys on the panel and rest were creative guys. And I believe the shopping center business is first a creative business and then a financial business. And I seriously believe that. If Shoppers Stop was purely a financial business, it wouldn't have been what it is today, purely. I'm saying, yes, there is financials involved, so you have to look at the financial second, according to me. I also believe that what you said, a comment which said, we are spending so much money put together, all the developers, for those guys who are going to give us rents, who don't have money. And I think shopping center guys are not building malls for tenants, they are building malls for consumers. So we will have to think like a department store and not as a tenant business. I can give you 10 examples of people who, in my journey of 20 years, hated this business, have loved this business. So I would like to take few names. So there's a man called Raj Singh Gehlot. I don't know how many people know. You know him very well, and you know his other businesses, and you know what situation is he in, and how the mall business is what has made him what he is today. He used to actually, I've heard it and I've been with it and I've seen it, what he used to call the mall business earlier. So Arjun Sharma was exiting the mall business just after 1 year of being the majority owner of Select City Walk. You see Anoopji's mall in Jaipur. You've seen, I told you about it before we began. The kind of passion you need for a shopping center is first for the consumer and then as the financials. Obviously, you can't do it without the financial. I just thought it's very important to set the thought right that I think it's more of a first a creative business and then a financial business. That's it.
All that I would say to that comment is you need to have enough oxygen.
Sure. Yeah, I think a good creative business will obviously be successful and will give you oxygen. It's both ways.
Which is delightful. That means that we've covered almost all the topics. I thought that people would want to ask, what about luxury retail, how that is panning out in India. There is, yeah, sorry.
Hi, my name is Ajay, and I'm a design consultant. The question I have for the panel is that we find businesses in different sectors are going through disruptive changes. Either through technology or cultural changes. And organizations are putting together a team of anthropologists, designers, and technology experts to create out-of-the-box thinking. Is a similar kind of an exercise being done by mall developers thinking about the future? Because I think sometimes I find that most mall developers are addressing malls either from a constraint perspective, or they're approaching it from a circumstantial requirement, or they're looking at the Indian consumer too closely, but there's not enough happening in terms of what can be the future and how is it that the investment towards making it happen in the future is being thought of now. So that's the question.
So the question is that are malls looking at sort of disruptive innovations, technologies, going forward, like in many of the other businesses it is. Is
that's the question, yeah. And I find that the changes are very marginal at the moment. So if there is, if I think somebody mentioned a very valid point that today there is no real customer who's from a A-tier city or a B-tier city. The global mindset is today has sunk in a big way because people travel a lot. So is there, if that's the case, then are the malls gearing themselves for being able to provide a more global experience as compared to just making marginal changes?
Well, let me partially answer that, then maybe Thomas is somebody who's more familiar with other markets.
I think Anup also had something to add.
I think the one example I can give you is Westfield. Westfield have set up the Westfield Labs in San Francisco, where they're actually experimenting with new technology. They're looking at convergence, they're looking at digital, they're looking at the consumer of tomorrow, how he or she behaves and what they should do in response. And so they're even offering space to a lot of the e-commerce guys to try out new technologies, what I spoke about earlier, experience centers. So all of this, I know that Westfield are doing it very actively. Maybe somebody else would like to add on.
Anu?
Yeah, I would certainly pick up the point from Mr. Raghu's lecture that, no innovation is static. It keeps on, it gets disengaged maybe in next few months. Malls and all such are basically community homes now. They're city homes. There is an aspiration level of the city. Let's answer this question first. Why does a person go to a mall? It is just for shopping, or it is just an experience. Actually, in his mindset, he's looking for getting something new, a new experience all the time. Suppose I have visited a mall in January, I'm going in July, I want something, there should be something change. It is not only need-based shopping, it is also addressing a lot of needs for something new environment to be provided. This can only be maintained when you are getting in new technology. You are not only creating a mall once with new technology and innovating things, but you are upgrading your systems almost on an annual basis. Because if you are not able to, there should be a continuous flow of technology moving into the malls, which can upgrade the malls. A mall built today may not be successful 2 years later. So to keep the mall running best with the aspirations of the people, technology has to flow in. And with my experience, let me tell you, people are really evaluating malls, that how technologically this mall is functioning. Whether it is parking, whether it is MEP side of the mall, whether it is the marketing side, the signages, the facilities for the customers. So technologies have to move into the mall to keep them always pepped up. So the formula is keep the customer pepped up.
No, so I mean, just to answer that, just to respond to that, I understand technology is important, but what I'm saying is that if I look at the architecture of a mall, hasn't it become a little stereotypical? There is a certain expectation in terms of the way, I mean, it's almost like the mall hasn't evolved from an architecture or from a design perspective, and it continues to be holding a similar kind of a architectural stereotype that we've always been seeing for the last 7-8 years. You still see the ACPs, and you still see the glass, and you still see the marble floorings, and you still see all of that, but there is no real effort that is being, that is visible at the moment in being able to say that there has been a disruptive change in the way the environments have been, rethought or have evolved in any sense.
No, in the design parameters, actually, mall specification should vary from city to city. Every city has its own need. What you're saying is this standardization of malls, what you're saying is ACP, same color tiles. He was saying China has 4,000 malls. Most of the malls you'll visit, you'll find that once you enter the mall, and what Anuj said, you take them blindfold, you'll come to know that you don't know which mall you are. So every mall has to have some uniqueness in it. And that can be derived from the cultural link with the city, which most of the malls being developed are missing. So these design issues which are propping up of monotony and all this would certainly be answered if malls are able to address to the city cultural needs. And every city has a different culture. So that should somehow become the ingredients of the mall, so that, and people should derive some, some sense of belongingness to the architecture of the place, to the styling of what people require there. So it'll automatically become different from each other.
But having said that,
sir, can we take it offline? Because, yeah.
Sure.
Abhishek, do you want to add, or Thomas, and then we sort of move on to...
I'll just add 2 points here. See, when you're doing a building, one thing is the bylaws. So there's one thing that bylaws, you have to figure what is the kind of height you can go, what is the kind of ground coverage you can go. And then there is the look and feel. So there is the look and feel still you can control a bit. typically we expect a mall's life to be 25 to 30 years, and then you either break it down or do something very drastic to change it. So the 2-3 things that now when we are doing new centers, we keep in mind is that how can we change the shop sizes, shop fronts, etc. in 3 to 5 years, which is not very long. In 3 to 5 years, we have to see that how can we change the look and feel of the mall. You can't change the heights, so you have to maximize and achieve whatever best you can, but then you're also guided by the bylaws. So there are a few things which you have to be governed by in terms of bylaws, and there are a few things which you want to keep as fluid as possible, because every 3 to 4 years you want to change something or the other in the center.
Thomas, do you want to add? Enough spoken on it. Yeah. Okay.
I think there's lots of opportunity for innovation in this area. Sometimes innovation can come being new and the first one. I share you 2 experiences I have. I started the first food court in Singapore, where there's no food court, and almost become a food court owner. Don't want to do shopping mall, almost, because I saw that there was a food court needed for every shopping mall in Singapore. And when I went to China, couldn't find food court, so I helped my canteen operator to become a food court owner, and today he has 350 food court. 350, right? And then I went to China, I couldn't find a big sports store, sports store. I saw Nike and Adidas, they're all loosely in the high street. So I put together 8,000 meter square sports store. And of course, it's a few hundred again. But after 10 years, he has not changed. And now we are into the internet world, right? So I'm very happy to meet another guy, because sometimes you need to have partners, right? Another entrepreneur who's prepared to try 20 sports anchor, totally interactive. And I think it's wonderful, because sports is the most interactive. You talk about experience, right? You buy a ping pong, you buy a basketball, right? You buy a shoe, you should try on, right? You don't do it on, you can't try it on the internet, right? So I think the list can go on, right? One of my favorite retailers sells cosmetic, right? She says, all my customers have to come and see me in the store, because she will check the skin for you, tell you what is the best concoction for your type of skin, right? And they help you to save time, and they get you the right cosmetic match. I think this is where innovation comes in. To save time, just to say that, it's up to the people in the industry, all of us here, to share information. I think one of the reasons why I boldly say that we are a little bit laid back compared to the techies. I happened to be in technology for a short period. In 1999, I started wireless internet before all the telcos. So I began to love the technology business. And I learned that there's no inflation in technology. Right? You look at it. A pen drive, all right, is now 10 times the capacity for 20% of the price, because they have evolved, right? They have challenged their own formats, they have challenged their own doings, and that's why today you see that they are entering our space. I think our kind of business, we need to take this forum, thanks Images for having this kind of place that we share information, and then grow together. I think that is important that information is shared, and then find new solutions to our industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been an interesting debate. Several points that were discussed, several key takeaways. I'm not going to try and summarize all the key takeaways, but sort of 3 things that I would say to make this into a successful asset class. First is patience, and patience, given that perhaps patient capital like REIT may come in, lower the cost of interest, that will help bring in more patience. Second is, really we heard the panelists talk about involvement, and said is that this is an asset class which you can't treat it as a landlord-tenant relationship. It has a lot more involvement, lot more partnership. I think Amitabh mentioned that, take the mall as a retailer itself, use it more as a departmental store rather than a real estate as an asset class. And the third is not many new malls coming in may not be really bad for the existing mall owners because it gives them the time to settle and ensure that they're able to capture the requisite market share. I would end by saying what really Thomas said is that as Indians, we know how to compete in India. As Indians, we know the domain, the geography, the landscape of this country, and we believe that there is consumption, and consumption is going to continue to stay with 1.2 billion people. That's not going to go away. Yes, there will be new technologies, there will be disruptive events that will happen. For example, the event on e-commerce or financial, but that doesn't mean that the sheen can be taken away from this asset class. And I'll finally wind it up to say is that don't be afraid. And this is an asset class that you'll have to continue to invest in and continue to nurture and mature and hopefully continue to reap the kind of profits that many of the panelists sitting in here or other successful mall owners in India are realizing. With that, thank you very much to the group of panelists, and I'm going to hand it over back to you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for all our panelists.